Hey guys, today I want to share with you 4 myths that I hear too often in regards to the great prime versus zoom debate. Using basic human logic, anyone new to photography would make the assumption that given the options to choose a lens for a camera that gives you a flexible zoom range versus a fixed focal length, the ability to zoom would probably win out and make more sense to most people. It's only as a photographer develops and becomes more acquainted with the history of photography and speaks with other photographers and listen to what folks say online that they learn that there are potential advantages to using a prime in certain circumstances. So as I recycle this topic, which is one that has been beaten to a bloody pulp by literally everyone with a vlog or a blog who owns a camera, I do want to emphasize one aspect of choosing between zooms and primes that most people don't talk about, or at least not enough, but I also need to cover the basics because we've had a huge influx of newer photographers to the channel with lots of questions relating to this, so bear with me as I quickly summarize some important factors that are worth considering. And to cover this, we'll start from that brand new photographer assumption that a zoom, you would think, would be more ideal. There are really only 3 compelling reasons anymore for sacrificing the flexibility that a zoom can give you, at least in my mind, and they are as follows. First, and probably most obvious, is the potential advantage with a smaller aperture number. When a lens can allow more light into the sensor, you get 2 benefits. You can shoot in lower light with better image quality, like here with this zoom lens, which is a superb Fuji lens. This is an 18-55, but its aperture is variable. It starts at a 2.8 and goes up to an f4 as you zoom. And I don't love using it in low light because I have to crank that ISO dial to compensate, which brings more noise to my photos. But with this guy, look how much less noise I get in low light situations. The lower aperture number also gets you what most newer photographers want when they first move into a real camera from their smartphone, and that is a shallow depth of field that can isolate the background. Again, compare those same 2 shots that I got with those same focal lengths from those same lenses that I mentioned, and you'll see the difference. Many newer photographers buy expensive cameras but get the kit lens with apertures of 3.5 or greater, and then they're completely let down and disappointed that they aren't able to get those blurred backgrounds that they were so excited about when they set out to upgrade from their phones. The prime is going to give you that. The second reason is generally smaller size and weight. I can take a tiny lens out like this, which is a 35mm f2. It's super light, easy to fit in any bag, it's inconspicuous. So those are 2 of the 3 big reasons that in my mind are compelling reasons to choose a prime over a zoom in certain circumstances. There is a third also, but here's where I need to introduce those 4 myths that I said I would tell you. There are 4 reasons I hear people commonly give for preferring primes over zooms that I don't feel are valid or are debunked. And I don't know why they're perpetuated. Number 1 myth, primes are sharper. I mean, this is just false. Every Fuji X zoom lens is superbly sharp at least somewhere in the zoom range. And in many cases they are as sharp, if not sharper, than many primes. And this is also true of most any modern brand of lenses. It is true that you can often find soft focal lengths on zooms, and that's usually at the ends, the extremes, all the way zoomed out or all the way zoomed in, that you take a sharpness hit. But even that is becoming less and less true as lens manufacturers improve sharpness and bring down chromatic aberration and distortion throughout the zoom range. Number 2, Fuji prime lenses are cheaper. Now this one might depend on the brand, but where we shoot Fuji, this just isn't true. This 18-55, 2.8 to f4, as I mentioned, amazingly impressive when it comes to image quality. It has image stabilization, by the way, which only one other prime lens has, and is right on par with many of Fuji's best prime lenses as far as price. But peek into the used market where you can get this lens lightly or barely touched. You can find it for about $350 US because of all those poor, misguided Fuji users who buy their bodies in a kit and then sell this thing thinking they need prime lenses because that's what everyone's telling them. Take advantage of their naivety and buy this lens. Even if you plan to shoot primes mostly, this is a great one to have for its versatility, and its value on the used market just can't be beat. Myth number 3 is actually one that I'm going to contradict myself on. Remember how I said earlier that primes have lower aperture numbers? While that is true today with Fuji lenses in particular, this is the next innovation we're already starting to see when companies like Canon and Sigma are building zoom lenses that can compete with primes in aperture. I believe this is the next big wave of innovation we will see for camera manufacturers, and I won't be surprised at all to see Nikon, Fuji, Canon, Sony, well, Canon's already doing it, but I won't be surprised to see them follow suit and start coming out with fast aperture zoom lenses in the next 5 years. Now finally we get to the most important point that I wanted to make with this video, and that is myth number 4. This is the myth that zoom lenses make you lazy. Now, I have actually said those very words, and I have told this to students back when I used to teach photography in the classroom, but I have to amend my statement and apologize. Zoom lenses don't actually make you lazy, but when I said that and when others say that, I think what we really mean is if you have a zoom lens, you will tend to keep your feet planted where they are and compose your shot by zooming. But now I realize this isn't actually laziness. I'm pretty sure any photographer would move their feet if they thought doing so would help them capture a better photo in certain circumstances. So it's not laziness exactly. What it is enablement, which in the world of psychology is considered a negative thing. The zoom lens is enabling you to not think very hard about composition, and that can be a negative thing. Now I have to be clear here, I'm not just talking about how to frame up a photo and the subject relative to its background. It's more subtle than that. The most powerful thing a zoom lens gives you, in my opinion, is the ability to change the field of view that you use to capture a subject with. For example, many newer photographers would consider these two photos composed exactly the same because they frame the subject the same amount in the camera and because they have the same background, but clearly they are different compositions. One has a wide field of view, giving the subject a playful feel. The edges of the subject are distorted, giving her limbs an exaggerated look, and the background lines wrap around the subject, framing her. But with the tighter focal length, the background is compressed more and it's squared up. The subject's face is also dramatically affected. It appears less playful and more serious or classic. And here's where the real power of a zoom lens comes into play. It's in choosing which way to capture a subject, and it's one of the hardest things to learn for newer photographers without the aid of a prime lens. So this is one of the reasons so many will recommend that you shoot with primes. In a way, they act as training wheels to help you start to see in different focal lengths. However, the zoom lens gives you the power to have full control over this important aspect of photography. With primes, you will need to purchase several lenses to gain the same level of control. To be clear, I'm not saying that zooms or primes are better one than the other. That would be a completely ridiculous and silly assertion. That would be the equivalent of telling a golfer to only use irons as opposed to woods, or whatever golfers. I don't know anything about golf. But my short answer to newer photographers who want to know the answer to the question, which should I buy, a prime or a zoom? The answer is, of course, a zoom. Unless you need a prime, then you buy a prime. But if you do buy a zoom, my strong recommendation is that you not forget to be aware of focal length and angle of view. If you find yourself planted in the same place and not moving your feet and playing with that zoom range to change the focal length and see how that affects your subject, you're losing out on a valuable aspect of photography. And if you find yourself doing that, maybe it makes sense for you to try shooting with some primes to master different focal lengths. As for me, I shoot both. I tend to take out 1 or 2 primes as I find it more enjoyable and less to pack around when it's just for myself, and I don't mind swapping lenses. For a job where I have plenty of light to work with, I'll typically use zooms and pack maybe 1 or 2 primes along if I really need that subject isolation, or I think I will. But if it's a job where I'm shooting in low light, I'll just take primes. But that's all I've got for you now. As always, remember, kindness before cameras, and we'll talk to you again real soon.